Resuming debate, and by video conference, the honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et aussi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to the Bloc Québécois that has worked hard to put together Bill C-225 and to introduce it.
I think as we look at this legislation, we really have to consider two very important things, especially on a day like today. I think that this is the moment where we ask ourselves two things, and we should be asking ourselves these two things every time we look at a piece of legislation at this specific time in history. Really, there are two things we always have to consider right now. And the first thing is that this is the time to come together as a nation, as one Canada. So I think when we review legislation, we always have to think about, does this legislation promote the good of Canada? And secondly, very important today, of course, we have the fall economic statement coming out later today. This is the time to build the economy. So every time we review a piece of legislation here within the House, we should be asking, does this bring together Canada? And will this further Canada's economy as we go forward? And not only for the reason of the fall economic statement, but it will be very important as we emerge from the pandemic. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines very close as we start to consider how we will do the procurement and the distribution throughout Canada. We have to think about those things. So as we review C-225, Mr. Speaker, I just want to go over it briefly for those who are not aware listening. So this will amend six different federal acts that will change legislation regarding land use and development, specifically in regards to, also in regards to environmental protection. And the Bloc is very motivated to put forward this legislation for two reasons. That's because there have been numerous court cases which have gone before the courts, the Supreme Court, in fact, where federal jurisdiction overrode the provincial jurisdiction. The Supreme Court sided with the federal government. So, of course, they are looking for more provincial power. And several of these cases, Mr. Speaker, actually originated from the province of Quebec. And so it's for these two reasons that they are very motivated to change this legislation. But in my observation, Mr. Speaker, we're concerned because there would be jurisdictional disputes, and we think that more cases, in fact, would have to go before the courts. So not necessarily a good thing to tie up the courts as a result of discrepancies between the two pieces of legislation or determining which one takes precedence in which situation. And as well, very concerning to us, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that some sections of the bill could be considered unconstitutional. And I will say, Mr. Speaker, this is surprising to me that the Bloc would put something forward that would be deemed unconstitutional, considering how hard they fight for the two founding peoples of the nation, in particular, the province of Quebec, where I think of this specifically right now. And I want to say how good both my leader and my colleagues have been from Quebec is regarding the modernization of the Official Languages Act. I had the pleasure of sitting on the Official Languages Committee for a brief period of time. But when it comes to the Constitution, I would expect that the Bloc would consider that as well, Mr. Speaker. I will say, for those who aren't aware, my leader was on Tout le monde en parle yesterday. If you didn't have an opportunity to see him there, I would suggest that you go and watch that. But going back to my two main points, that this is the time to come together as a nation, and this is the time to build the economy. I will go to the first point. So there are concerns that this bill could result in negative economic implications as it may deter private investment in infrastructure projects due to additional red tape. provinces could amend their legislation on land use and environmental protections in order to block federal projects. And very relevant to myself, Mr. Speaker, being a member of Parliament from Alberta, the bill could block federal economic development projects such as the Trans Mountain Pipeline or other infrastructure projects. And I think, as I said, in a time when we are looking to come out of the pandemic united, we really need to think about legislation that will be nation building. I would certainly count on my colleagues from Quebec to support infrastructure projects all across Canada, as I would, a member of Parliament from Alberta, support any projects which are in the national interest of Canada. I think that's very important that we all take this into consideration as parliamentarians for Canada, that we really have to think about the effects of legislation such as C-69, C-48 here, and the way that's so negatively impacted the natural resources sector here in Alberta. We have to think, one has to put themselves in the shoes of this, that if legislation were to come across such as this, that another province could potentially have the possibility to impact an infrastructure project that would be of benefits to Quebec. And I don't think that they would like to see that any more than we, as members of Parliament from Alberta, who have had this happen to us, or the potential to have this happen to us, see that happen. But also, more importantly at this time, Mr. Speaker, I think we really have to question, this is the time to build this economy. What will legislation like this do? It will, in fact, create more insecurity around investment in Canada at this time. And, I will hand it to the Prime Minister and to his cabinet that just have done a masterful job of driving away investment from Alberta, the prairies and the entire energy sector, in fact, to the detriment of Canada. Because we are all suffering as we come out of this pandemic with the $1 trillion debt that we have in front of us, the hundreds of billions of dollars of deficits that we have. And we really need to come together as a nation to think about how we are economically going to respond to this. And the Prime Minister and his cabinet just don't seem to get this, that when one part of the nation benefits, the entire nation benefits. And I would ask my Bloc colleague to consider that at this time as well. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask Canadians to really listen to the fall economic statement today. And I really hope we do not see what we saw in the speech from the throne, which was complete disappointment, just more poor ideas based upon ideology as opposed to real solid ideas to build the economy going forward. But this is what I'm expecting more of today. So when Canadians are listening to the fall economic statement today, Mr. Speaker, I want them to ask themselves three questions. Number one, will this improve the economy? Listen to what they are saying. Will it improve the economy for Canada? Because goodness knows we need that coming out of this pandemic. Number two, will this protect my job if I have a job? Will this fall economic statement, is there anything in here to protect my job? Because I'm telling you, I am in a place where I've seen so many people lose their jobs. There's another round of layoffs coming at a major employer, Imperial, this week here in Alberta. Terrible to see. And again, I completely blame the Liberal government for this, for their investment destroying legislation. And I do believe this bill will add to that. And third, will this fall economic statement create more jobs? Will this improve the economy? Will this protect my job? And will this create more jobs? Those are the three things that Canadians have to be asking themselves. Because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, I believe Canadians have to ask of their parliamentarian and of their government, are they taking actions? Are they passing legislation to support the country to support the economy, or are they taking actions and passing legislation that are destroying the economy, which is essentially destroying Canada? Because this is what is happening, bit by bit by bit. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I say, this is the time to come together as a nation. This is the time to build the economy. The Liberal government has not done this, and I believe C-225 does not do this as well. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.